Welcome to you, ma'am. And as we were talking about how important digital media is or digital marketing is, so definitely, ma'am is going to share her experience with you guys. So over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bhavna ma'am. Thank you, Dhulia sir. It is a complete honor. So coming back to the point, I'm going to talk about organizational communication in the digital age. Now, uske pehle कि हम उसके बारे में बात करें, it is important to understand what exactly organizational communication is. We all hear about the media, we all hear about public relations, media relations, social media. But किसी भी बड़ी company में और किसी भी organization में there is an internal team of experts that works to make sure कि internally लोगों के बीच जो communication या जो लीडरशिप अपने एम्प्लॉयज के साथ कम्युनिकेट करती है, बिकॉज आई हैव ऑलवेज बिलीव्ड कि जो एम्प्लॉयज होते हैं कंपनी के अंदर, उनका जो अभी आप अगर कस्टमर का रिसर्च करने जाओगे तो यू माइट हैव टू गिव एन एजेंसी अ ह्यूज सम ऑफ मनी टू डू अ सेगमेंटेशन कि मेरा कस्टमर क्या है, उसकी हैबिट्स क्या है. बट फॉर एन इंटरनल कम्युनिकेटर इट बिकम्स ईजी because they're all part of the family, जो employees हैं या leadership है. So my job at Royal Enfield is to, and the rest of the organizations that I've worked with, has been to kind of create internal communication roadmap कि हम पूरे साल में how will we communicate to our people, what will we communicate, through what channels will we communicate, how much will we communicate, to ensure that people are aligned to business goals. And ऐसा नहीं है that it's a song dance routine कि हमने कुछ भी communicate कर दिया कि आज कैंटीन में this biryani in canteen or whatever. But according to the annual business plan, or so to say the strategic goals of the company, how are we taking everybody along? How does communication play a big role? When I started my career, internal communication एक छोटा सा department होता था, probably only business to business kind of companies में, where we would only be seen as somebody who can write and speak good English or proofread, right? But now after 15-16 years in the industry, I believe that internal communicators are more like strategic counsels. So all big companies, be it Royal Enfield, be it Facebook, Google, all other tech giants of the world, Microsoft, everybody has dedicated internal employee communications team. So that in itself tells us that how important it is for the leadership to be communicating to our internal audience, which in turn turns out to be the ambassadors of the brand, right? So initially when I started, it would probably be an email, only emails, or probably an intranet, or we also used to do a lot of printed newsletters from the CEO ki mahine bhar mein ya quarter mein jo baat hui hai company mein. We used to distribute memos, printed memos. We used to have bulletin boards jahan notices pin karte the, very much like all these traditional mediums of communication. But in these 15 years, and specifically in the last 2 years, ever since COVID hit us, like my company is basically an Indian origin company, and most Indian origin companies were taken aback कि भाई अब सब बंद है तो हम घर से काम कैसे करेंगे. Nobody knew what is the idea of working in a digital age. Nobody knew what is working from home. So these 2 years for internal communicators have been challenging and also rewarding in many ways. Like we completely understood our जो आपका employee base है, it is scattered all over, and they're not coming to office, so physical interactions are limited. How will you kind of go ahead and say that, okay, I want to communicate, people are on the move, right? You need to ensure that they are kind of consuming your content. So we came up with a lot of things, like the digital mediums that you might have in an organization would be your intranet site, where the entire, which will be like an internal website which only the employees can see. Like royalenfield.com is a website for everybody, and our customers can see it. But there's an internal website called RE1 which we have created, which is Royal Enfield 1, which is only for employees. So it is a place where people come and meet and talk to each other and discuss various things that are for internal consumptions. But obviously beyond that, what are we doing? How are we doing internal communications? For example, at Royal Enfield we use a tool called Populo, which we embed with our email communication system. So जब मैं आपको कोई email भेज रही हूँ and you are one of those 5,000 people, I completely have access कि कितने लोगों ने वो email खोली है, कितने लोगों ने वो email पढ़ी है, कौन से link पे आप गए हो, किस time पे गए हो, किस दिन पे गए हो. Very much like a marketing person, right, who does a segmentation of his customer using digital and social media tools कि YouTube पे कितने likes हैं, कितने comments हैं, लोग कितना engage हो रहे हैं. The same approach is now coming to internal communications as well, which would not have been the case earlier. बिकॉज लाइक आई सेड कि शुरू में तो होता था कि भाई इंटरनल कम्युनिकेटर है तो सीईओ के लिए कोई मैसेज लिख दिया या कोई ईमेल आई है तो उसे पढ़ लिया या प्रूफ रीड कर लिया. बट देन नाउ वी आर more on the measuring game. How will you measure your efforts? Can you sit down on a review and say ki, I churned out 50 pieces of emails? That is not something that you would want to measure. But you can say that 80% of my employees were engaged in a peak pandemic time, generating more content, listening to what the leadership had to say, participating in more events that we conducted. So employee communications or organizational communications is turning more and more obviously strategic and more digital. We are moving away from paper. Like, for our sustainability initiatives, we have taken a pledge कि हम कुछ print नहीं करेंगे. None of our newsletters are now being printed. Everything is on digital. So, whether they are through mobile applications, our internet is on mobile. And, if you're not in office and you're going around, so you can just by a click of a button, you can just, read the newsletter. You don't have to print the newsletter. So how are we aligning our communication strategy with the overall business goal is this. So, sustainability is one of our 8 pillars of success for the entire organization. So how does communication ensure कि भाई या तो हम communicate भी कर रहे हैं and we are also meeting business goals. So I can say that 100% of my communication initiatives were online or digital, with even like one single piece of paper was not printed. So right, these are the things that's how we are ensuring. So if you talk about mediums, and I know half an hour is not a great time to talk about everything in detail, so that is why I'm like touching everything in short detail. So जब हम internal communications करते हैं, organizational communications करते हैं, what are the tools that we are using? We are using email, we are using intranet, we are using mobile applications, we are using the platform that we are talking at right now, which is Zoom. So what happened last year is when everybody started working from home, we came up with something called Red Talks. And now that is a part of engagement. Red Talks is Royal Enfield discussion and talks, very, very shamelessly copied from TED Talks, but it's okay. If you find a good practice, it is good to copy that and go ahead. So what we did is that, we did live streaming. We called all our top leadership and our employees to be part of these 20-25-minute capsules where everybody came up. And right from our managing director, Siddharth Lal, and he hosted this from his garden in London, and he was talking about the brand Royal Enfield. And a very candid discussion with people, right? And people attended it. So in the last 2 years, we have done over 200 such sessions of Red Talks, and it has become a signature program, so much so that it was covered in Business Standard, Business Line as well. Our CEO, in one of his interviews, spoke about this signature program, that how is internal communications or organizational communications, creating a lot of engagement in an age where digital is everything. Newsletters you cannot print, you cannot give to people, right? So how will you ensure that people are consuming this information? We also use WhatsApp increasingly for our dealer communications. The dealer principals or the sales staff, which is always on the move, they use their mobile phones for everything. So we use WhatsApp. We have WhatsApp groups, and we use these small video capsules that we create for a launch of other a lot of different things that we do at Royal Enfield. And I'll just take an example and tell you, I think in 2018 we released 2 motorcycles by the name of Twins, the 650 Twins as we call it. 2 motorcycles आई थी, Interceptor and Continental GT. So हमने इसका launch किया था Santa Cruz में और गोवा में किया था, and that time was pre-COVID time. But then it is very important for us to see ki how is it affecting. So what does organizational communication or employee communications do? So internal launch mein, how are we ensuring that everybody is getting the right message at the right time, has access to the motorcycles, to have a physical overview of the motorcycle. So these things, for example, I spoke about WhatsApp. At that time we also did some printed communication, like we sent letters to dealers and all those things. But WhatsApp played a very important role on how we were engaging with people, one who were in the factories who did not have access to email, and the second group was these dealer principals, like the people, the sales staff, the staff of the dealers. How did they know that there were 2 new motorcycles being launched? What was the construct of the motorcycle? If the leadership at Royal Enfield had to send a message, I cannot expect कि dealer के यहाँ जो बंदा चाय पानी पिलाता है, he has access to email and he will log into my intranet and to get that message, right? So this digital age, I think digital communication, not only for the customers, for people who are also within the system, I think it has made it very easy for us to cut across barriers and move forward. like even to the last person in the group, right? Whether he's a cleaner or like, a mechanic in one of the bays that the dealers have for servicing. So, increasingly we are doing this, and mobile for that matter has become very, very important. So, when you go in detail, you will understand how to leverage these systems. Something that, was जो पहले सोचने में या हम सोच नहीं सकते थे. For example, video communication. Video has come up big time, right? Now, the chief executive officer or the chief HR officer doesn't have to write a 3-page email to people, right? He can just record a video from his phone and put it up on the internet. He doesn't have to wait. The communication has become quick. The consumption has become quick. I cannot be sitting on like, something which is of very, very urgent nature and say कि अच्छा मैं कल बना लूंगी या मैं परसों कर लूंगी. Digital is now. And with more and more mediums coming in, I also wanted to touch upon a smaller thing, which is obviously detailed, but how employees act as ambassadors to the brand, right? Everybody must be on Instagram. They know how Instagram influencers are. But as an employee of the company, when you will go and work in an organization, you will also become an ambassador for that company, right? So what do internal communicators need to do? You need to leverage these ambassadors. They have an influence on a certain segment of the society. Some of our employees have followers in thousands, right? Because of some other work that they do, or they're riders or something like that. So how do we ensure that they are talking more and more about the company, and they are bringing in some reputation for my own organization, for their own organization? So for this, we use a typical tool called Sociable. And there are many tools like Sociable. What Sociable does is that, it helps you link your personal social media accounts, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, to the organizational account. And when you log in through Sociable, there is a news item that has come about Royal Enfield. At the click of the button, if you like that article and if you think it should be shared on your personal social media, you just have to click one button and share it, and it will be shared on all these social media platforms. So rather than you going and clicking and sharing in all different platforms, Sociable actually gives employee advocacy a very important strength. So for me as a communicator, it is very easy for me now to see that how many people are actually advocating for Royal Enfield. And that is how I bring in measurement. I can say that in the last week, about 1,000 people from Royal Enfield went ahead and shared Royal Enfield stories on their social media account. I can see it through the Sociable platform. Otherwise, I cannot go to 1,000 people's different accounts and say that who is sharing what. So I think digital and these tools have really made it easy to kind of keep track of your efforts, to measure your efforts. I think data is everything. Like initially when I would go as an assistant manager or a manager, I would go for my quarterly reviews or monthly reviews. तो उसमें सिर्फ content ही होता था कि मैंने ये किया, मैंने वो किया, and all these bullet points. But now when I go and sit with my top leadership for my reviews, everything is data and dashboards. I can tell them that we've reached about 11,000 people in the course of 3 months through different engagements. And I can measure it. So measurement gives you the power. And that is why, like how sir says that it is so relevant right now. His experience of journalism was very different. What I learned in school, in college, was so different. I had to completely unlearn everything as soon as I was out and in the real world. So talking to professionals, networking, I think some of the key skills that communicators, or if you're looking to find a role in a large organization, leading communications, working with CEOs, working with chief human resource officers, one is obviously like, one is confidence. So when we get into the Q&A section, I want each one of you to please turn on your camera and then ask the question. If you're not confident, if you're shying away, you're never going to be successful, whatever it is. Like, face it. The second, like sir said, that, obviously strong content skills. It has to be whatever language you're using. You're using Hindi, ensure that you're impeccable in the language. If you're using Hindi, ensure कि आप उसमें जो भी लिख रहे हो वो बिल्कुल सही है. And in this age, it is not difficult. It is not difficult to learn. Like, till date, I think I keep learning a lot of stuff from podcasting to, in fact, we are launching the podcast for Royal Enfield in a couple of weeks now. So, there are new mediums coming up. If we talk about podcasting, for people who are shy, like many of the people on this call, podcasting is a very good medium, and it kind of, increases the communication confidence of people कि आप audio पे सुन सकते हो. तो हम क्या करते हैं कि मैन्युफैक्चरिंग के जो लोग हैं, जो मोटरसाइकिल्स बनाते हैं, वो उनको एक्सेस नहीं है, तो वो तमिल में हम उनकी स्टोरीज रिकॉर्ड करेंगे और हम उनको सबटाइटल्स के साथ चलाएंगे पूरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में. सो उससे क्या होगा कि जो एम्प्लॉय स्टोरी टेलिंग है उसको बहुत स्ट्रेंथ मिलती है. Right, so there are different ways. So I was coming back to the skills kya chahiye. One, you have to keep networking, keep learning from each other, be on LinkedIn. If you're an internal communicator, ensure that आप उन platforms पर हो जहाँ internal communicators मिलते हैं, best practices share करते हैं. Technology is very important. Like, it's just not pen and paper and notebook anymore. It is beyond that. Like, internal communicators also use Facebook, also use LinkedIn. They manage these pages for their large organizations. और internal communicators का काम सिर्फ यही नहीं होता है कि वो मैसेजिंग करे, बट उनका काम ये भी होता है कि वो एक रेपुटेशन मैनेज करें अपनी कंपनी की, जो टिपिकली मीडिया रिलेशंस ऑफिसर्स करते हैं. बट देयर आर अदर वेज टू manage their reputation. If you have a public relation officer in your company, they would probably talk about customers and products and leadership, right? Leadership bhi jo external facing hai, bas wahi. But as an internal communicator, it's a strong opportunity area to work on employee advocacy, employer brand जिसको हम कहते हैं कि अगर रॉयल एनफील्ड का अच्छा ब्रांड है मार्केट में, कि उनकी मोटरसाइकिल्स अच्छी हैं, तो वो मार्केटिंग का काम है या ब्रांड टीम का काम है. बट अगर रॉयल एनफील्ड को कोई ऐसे देखता है कि वो एक बहुत अच्छी कंपनी है और मुझे उसमें नौकरी करनी है और मेरा सपना है कि मैं रॉयल एनफील्ड में काम करूं, तो वो मेरा काम है एज द इंटरनल कम्युनिकेशन लीडर्स कि मैं वो छवि, वो ब्रांड, वो इमेज मार्केट में उस कंपनी की बनाऊं. अब वो मैं कैसे बनाऊंगी? या तो मैं फेसबुक यूज कर रही हूँ, और फेसबुक में ऐसा नहीं है कि आई एम बीटिंग माई ओन ट्रम्पेट. Right, my people, my team members, my colleagues, they should be going and talking about me. They should be going and advocating. आपने LinkedIn पे देखा होगा, बहुत सारे बच्चे जब Google ज्वाइन करते हैं तो वो फोटो लगाते हैं अपनी खींच के, and they say that I'm proud to be joining Google, and Google responds. Google का जो पेज है, they respond saying that they use a word called noogler, which is a new Googler. They say कि welcome to Google noogler or something like that, right? So employee advocacy वो होती है, and there are many digital mediums to do that. So these are smaller modules that we can talk about one by one when you get into the course. But for now, I think if you are looking for a career in organizational communication, you have to keep your eyes and ears open, and learning is a constant process. And I think the platform that sir is providing in terms of getting all these people जो अपने अपने क्षेत्र में बहुत ज्यादा experience हैं उनसे सीखना, and what you're doing, you're also creating a network. So once we go back from these classes, please ensure that you're finding us somewhere on LinkedIn and all, and connecting, so that if you need any kind of clarification or something later on, people are there to support you. I think this is a huge community that we can leverage. So that is one of the key skills jo hame develop karni hai, to become experts in communication. And you will not do that just one day. It'll just keep going on. What you're doing today, and you're learning, and you're trying to find a career path. Isme ek learning jo hai wo constant process hai. So when I talk about organizational communication, I'm very passionate because I've literally been raised and brought up in this function, and I know how the function has evolved. And from being content writers to becoming strategic councils for the leadership. When I say strategic councils for the leadership, I also mean that when my CEO is in doubt, if he's writing a letter for the organization and he is in doubt, he should be able to pick up the phone and ask me that, Nazia, I'm writing a challenge letter and I'm stuck at this point. What do you think I should do? So, that kind of confidence I should exude, so that my top leadership, just confides in me ki, to set a direction ki internal communications ki direction kya honi chahiye, uska roadmap kya hona chahiye, So these are some of the things that I wanted to talk about. I know I've really gone fast, but I think I will use the Q&A session to get into a little detail on certain specific areas that you want to talk about. But in a nutshell, this is what I had to share. So sir, over to you from here.
Yes, Bhavna, you can invite them for the questions. And feel free to ask either in Hindi or English.
So it's a humble request from all participants. If you have questions, you want to, ask something related to organizational communication, internal communication, which is required in any of the organization. So this forum is open for you guys. Either you can directly talk to ma'am, or you can also even send your question in the chat box. Choice is yours. Yeah, Laksh, you raised your hand. You can unmute yourself and can ask your question. Laksh.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. It is amazing session, and I think you have cleared many of the parameters and many of the extensions about the internal communications. But I want to ask you, what are the diameters and what are the extensions we can explore right in PSUs? You have well defined for the private sector, like the role and field, but there are many dimensions and many points that need to be covered and that need to be explored, right? Being a mass communication student or being a journalist, that we need to explore right in the PSU and government sector, because in that sector, in the government sector, is still there's a communication lag between the hierarchies and between the higher officers and between the lower staff. It
Right.
exists. It actually exists. So what we can do, and if earlier, I was thinking to apply for PR officer as in government department, but not right now. I'm more passionate for the private sector. So, what we can do if we go for as in PR officer or whatever. Thank
Right.
you so much, ma'am.
Thanks, Lars. Thanks for your question. And I think, it's a very relevant question. But, to be really honest, when we passed out of IMC, we really wanted to get into a public sector, and, the general perception and that it's a very comfortable, settled life. And then, but yes, I do understand there is a certain system of working, which is very drastically opposite to what you would see in a private sector. But, after, I think there is also the method of selection is very different. And, it is a pretty comprehensive system of an advertisement being taken out and then you being called for a test or for an interview. So I think it's very lucrative to get into the public sector as well, because as I'm seeing right now, some of my friends work in PSUs and they have made very good careers for themselves, as I'm seeing right now. And that shift has been a paradigm shift in the way communications is, so a lot of PSUs are also giving a lot of attention to communications as a concept and how they want to improve the messaging within their organization. Yes, but you might have a consolidated role if you go to a PSU. The role of public relations and internal communications might just be clubbed, or even Marcom would be clubbed in one role. And that is why it is essential to have a multifaceted approach in terms of learning. So you also need to learn digital a little bit, you also need to learn content marketing, you also need to look at the technical aspect of it, is to developing a website on WordPress and all that. Even though you'll have agencies to support you in a lot of things, but you would still need to monitor those agencies, right? So it's always better to kind of keep sharpening your saw and saying that what are the additional skills that you can harness in the process. But I think going to a PSU or even aspiring to go to a PSU is not a bad thing at all. It's a great career option. But upskilling, the concept remains the same, right? Whether you work in a private or you work in a public sector environment, I think the ethics of working will remain the same. The ways of working internally, even in private sector, right, company by company, organization by organization, there'll be a shift in the culture. There will be a shift in how people behave. So I don't think that should be a deterrent to stop you for applying in a PSU. And if you get through, I mean, like, it's a great career option, to be honest. Does that answer your question, Laksh?
Yeah, it has. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can after this interactive class, can you please share your links and all about LinkedIn, and also we can follow you on Instagram or your personal email address?
Sure, I can do that. I can just drop in my LinkedIn profile here.
Ma'am, I have something to ask.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Yeah. So, ma'am, when you were explaining what exactly corporate, organizational communication entails, the sense that I got from it is that it overlaps a lot between a lot of different roles in the organization. Like, sometimes it's maybe analyzing how well something is done, or sometimes it's maybe checking how well your social media is doing. Could you tell us what a typical 9 to 5 day for you involves?
Yes, thanks, Crystal. And thank you so much for turning on your camera. I think that's the first step towards getting into a field like media. What I said that, whatever you don't know, just jump into the fire. Your confidence will take you places, right? And there is no dearth of information on the internet. Till date, if I don't know anything, I just Google it. Like, that's like the best way to move ahead, move forward in life, right? So thank you for showing that confidence. 9 to 5, there is no 9 to 5 job for me. Let me tell you that. Some days I just laze around. Some days I am just working very, very late. Some days my leaders won't call me. Some days my leaders will call me on my son's birthday and say that, there's a strike in a factory and I need a memo to be drafted. Can you do that, Nazia? And I'll have to leave the birthday party and I'll have to go and do it. Right. So communications per se, you have to be in the and it is like you said, I don different hats, right? I am at a vice president level right now, but still I would, probably if there's an event, I'll be moving the chairs and setting up the desk and the table and putting up flowers, right? Or I would be sitting with the CEO in one of the business meetings one day and just taking talk points from him and drafting his brief. So it has it has extremes. So never think that, every day I roll up my sleeves and get the dirty work done, right? So my day starts, and then I am probably in meetings or creating a lot of content. So it'll always be a lot of content heavy role. So that is why I said that, read, practice, work on your language, and be a stickler for grammar. My friends jokingly call me a grammar Nazi. So I am like all for grammar. कि language पे चाहे हिंदी हो, उर्दू हो या इंग्लिश हो, language पे बहुत strong पकड़ आपकी होनी चाहिए. आप जिस भी language में काम करते हो या बात करते हो. So that is one of the prerequisites. But my role would be also to, one is very content heavy, looking at the platforms. Is the content updated or not? Are there new stories? Talking to people, meeting employees on a regular basis, whether it'll be in the plants in Chennai, meeting different kinds of people, understanding their issues. So talking is one skill, writing is one skill, listening is another skill that we need to develop as internal communicators, right? How good we listen to the nerve of the organization, because you are the voice of the people, right? So I do a lot of focus group meetings, I do a lot of water cooler conversations, I do a lot of coffee chats with employees, and we talk about a lot of things: policies, procedures, business plans, what is happening, what is the market looking like, what are people from external at Royal Enfield saying, and all that stuff, right? And I note down those points, and it really helps me create my plan in terms of what is the next subject of the next town hall that my leader is going to conduct. So listening is one skill, because you'll always be that person who's going to take all this information, whether it be worries of the people or like any different ideas that are coming from people. So that is why your leadership or the top management starts trusting you, right? Because they know that if it is an employee related thing, Nadia would have the answer. They would know how should they tone the message to suit the audience. Will they understand in this language or in this way of writing or not? So my typical day would be a lot of writing, a lot of learning, a lot of measuring and creating engagement programs, seeing how my people are reacting to the stories, and if somebody is not reacting in a good way, getting to the root of the problem, why is it so. And also planning. A lot of planning happens, like I plan every quarter, even though I've made a business plan at the top beginning of the year, but then a lot of planning. For example, nobody understood that COVID will come, right? So I made a plan in March 2020. It all went for a toss, right? That plan never worked anymore. We went completely offline, online, right? We went completely digital. All our town halls were conducted digital. So in the last 2 years, I think, in collectively, we have done almost say 50 town halls on various subjects, right? We've been calling up experts on employee wellness and talking to people. So, you have to kind of, be in the moment and be aware of your surroundings. How is it going to change? How is it going to impact the communication plan that you're creating? How is it going to impact the entire organization? So yes, but at the start of it, I think, just tag along. You will not be in a leadership role right when you start, but then, you need to be constantly upskilling yourself. You need to be in those networks. You need to be kind of, talking to people of the fraternity and understanding how the organization works, or how the particular team works, right? And then keep bringing in. But some of the skills that I mentioned are mandatory.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christelle.
There is one question in the chat box, ma'am, that what are the major roles of social media in organizational communication in digital age?
That's a very good question, and I think I briefly touched upon it when I said employee advocacy. You're talking about if I'm not mistaken, you want to check that how does social media play a role in organizational communication. So social media, we know it's all digital, right? And like I said, that when I'm creating an employee advocacy campaign, now it is very important to understand what employee advocacy campaign would be. So I've got this mandate from my boss saying that, Nazia, I want people to be looking at Royal Enfield as an employer of choice or an equal opportunity employer. So if he says, and that's a big on my diversity and inclusion agenda, right? So for example, let's talk about equal opportunity employee. And I create a plan saying that, okay, these are 5 things that we're going to talk about. We'll talk about women, of how Royal Enfield is a safe place or a great place for women, or new mothers. We'll talk about, specially abled people, how Royal Enfield is a great place for especially able people. We create these campaigns, these stories, these articles, these video interviews with our people. The tactics could be different. Now, when I talk about tactics, it could be posters, it could be creative, it could be newsletters, it could be video, it could be infographics, it could be human stories, anything. But the overarching message is that I am going to LinkedIn, I am going to Facebook, I am going to Twitter with this campaign, and telling the external world that how Royal Enfield is an equal opportunity employer and it should be an employer of choice. So I'm starting those conversations. I am probably involving my leadership. I am being part of those forums. So how do we leverage these platforms? And the platforms are like LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, right? So this is how these platforms will help me further my agenda of portraying Royal Enfield as an employer of choice by this impactful storytelling, by this engagement. I will also get in a team of my top employees who have good followership on these platforms to vouch for me, to reshare those stories, to reshare those conversations, reignite those conversations later, right? And like I was talking about Sociable, which is an internal platform that I use to further the cause of employee advocacies. Now, Sociable क्या करता है? For example, मेरा लिंक्डइन अकाउंट या मेरा ट्विटर अकाउंट है या मेरा इंस्टाग्राम अकाउंट है, मैं सोशेबल पे जाती हूँ, आई हैव अ रॉयल एनफील्ड ईमेल आईडी एंड पासवर्ड, आई लॉग इन टू सोशेबल एंड आई कनेक्ट माय पर्सनल अकाउंट्स with Sociable. Now I see a story about how there's a person named Ayushi, and she is a new mother, and how Royal Enfield is supporting her restart her career. She's a new joiner, right? And we do a very nice story about it. I like this story as an employee. What do? I want to share it in my network on LinkedIn. I just click one button and it is there on Twitter. It is there on Instagram. It is there on LinkedIn or Facebook, whatever. So, what is Sociable helping me do? It's helping me share my love for Royal Enfield on various social media platforms. So that is the power of technology. That is the power of digital. Now I sit down after 3 months and my boss says कि अरे नाजिया उसका क्या हुआ LinkedIn पे जो हमने वो social media campaign चलाया था. Can I tell him that I did 10 stories? No, I will not tell him that. I will go to Sociable backend. I will fetch the report and say that, Rajiv, we figured out, we had 5,000 impressions. We had reached out to kind of, 1 lakh people. This is the engagement rate. And these are the comments that we generated. These are these many likes. These many employees, say 500 employees, believed in this and they actually shared it, on their social media handles, and that is further compounded, right? So that is how the digital, landscape gives me an opportunity to present that data on paper, and not just use fancy English words and say that the campaign was successful, right? I cannot say the campaign was impeccable without putting numbers in it. So I think, as internal communicators also, digital mediums and the social media landscape, both powered by technology, is helping us put those numbers into our content, right? And that is what gives me confidence that the days are very bright for my function.
There's one more question from Sanjay Kumar, and he is asking that is email marketing a better option for any organization these days?
See, it depends, right? Email marketing is basically done for organizations, and I'm sorry, my knowledge is not so great in this, but I know for a fact that my organization, Royal Enfield, does a lot of customer relationship management through email marketing. Every time there's a new launch, they send out an email to their marketing database and all that, and it works. I'm sure it gives them some return on investment because people are looking for such information. So it depends on company, and you have to figure out if that is the right thing for you to do for your organization. Like, if it is a different kind of organization, if it is like, for example, an organization like Mercer or the global operations and shared services for Mercer, who do not have customers in India, you would not probably want to take up email marketing, right? You would probably want to do something on social media advocacy or employee advocacy or talent acquisition, recruitment marketing campaigns, because you want more and more people to come and join your organization. So email marketing, yes, definitely, it's a great tool in the digital landscape, but it will always be very specific to the kind of business you have, right? The kind of organization you're working for, or what does your organization do? So I think that is where you need to take a call. And also, please understand that whatever I'm telling you, it's not like a recipe for a sudden success, right? It's not one size fits all. The first thing that an internal communicator or an organizational communicator needs to understand is to get to the nerve of the business, to understand what are the core areas of my business, how. And that is why business acumen is, again, one of the biggest virtues that an internal communicator can have, apart from language and confidence and technology and digital awareness and all that stuff. But if you do not understand your business, that is like, you are bound to fail. So please read what your company does, meet more people, meet business heads on regular intervals, understand what are the market dynamics, who are your customers, how are customers behaving. So do not feel इंटरनल कम्युनिकेटर्स अगर मैं बोलूं तो शायद मुझे लगता है बहुत लोगों को ये लगेगा कि इंटरनली तो है, उसमें क्या है इतना ज्यादा, उसमें कुछ है थोड़ी ना, उसमें तो आपको बस एम्प्लॉयज को ही एंगेज करना है. बट नेवर मिस्टेक दिस. आई मीन, लाइक, it is also a very strong business communications role. So understanding the business is the prerequisite. Whenever you're getting into a new organization, do everything, whether it be through induction or meeting the business leaders or the business managers, anybody, or people on ground for that matter. I still make sure that I go and meet people who are जो motorcycle बना रहे हैं, जो nut bolt tight करके they are on the assembly lines, they are creating motorcycles every day. Because you have to, from the front line to the top leadership, you have to understand everybody and then figure out your strategy. कि email marketing काम करेगा या employer branding काम करेगी या intranet campaigns काम करेंगे, तभी आप पता कर पाओगे जब आपको पता चलेगा कि business challenge क्या है, right?
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this enlightening session. Yeah, anyone else want
I
to
think
ask?
there was a question on newsletters, I think.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
My name is Junaid Ahmed. I am from Ranchi itself, ma'am.
Hello, Junaid.
My question to you, ma'am, that suppose if I join any organization or any communication organization as a communicator, then what are the challenges that we have to face and how can we deal with that, ma'am? As a fresher, as a new.
As a communicator, see, as a fresher, you will not deal with so many challenges, right? Like I said, that it's just a learning phase. So, the biggest challenge would be कि आप कितना अपने आप को रोकते हैं नई चीजें सीखने से, तो वो आपका चैलेंज है जो आपको ओवरकम करना होगा. बट ओवरली मैं आपको बताऊं कि इतने सालों में जो मैंने देखा है, बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज जो मुझे लगता है फॉर इंटरनल कम्युनिकेटर्स to get a seat on the table. Like, how do you become a part of important decisions, or how do you see कि भाई जब एक important business call लिया जा रहा है, so I also want a seat on the table to say that, hey, communications has a role to play in it, right? And I think more and more leaders are now seeing this, this as an increasing trait. Ki yes, communication has a role. We are not just writers. We are here to solve complex business problems and challenges. So understand it from that perspective. So जब अपना mindset change कर लोगे ना जुनैद, कि मैं सिर्फ यहाँ अंग्रेजी लिखने नहीं आया हूँ, मैं सिर्फ newsletter बनाने नहीं आया हूँ, मैं business की problem solve करने आया हूँ, then I think you will get that due respect in communications as an internal communications. And thanks to COVID, I think the only good thing that I can see in COVID is that we have been put under the spotlight. Now अब मेरी company में कुछ भी होता है ना, तो I get the first call. as to, because they know कि मुझे ये information पता होगी and I will be able to kind of, solve this for people because of my close proximity with leadership. और leadership के साथ proximity ऐसे नहीं बनेगी. You have to earn their trust. You have to go and tell them कि boss, this is what we are facing. Can we do this? Can we do a coffee table session with you? Can we do a red talk with you? Can we do leaders unplugged? We did a leaders unplugged session with the top management of the company, but that was a face-to-face session. And but we are improvising. For example, we hired our CFO last year all offline, online. Like, we had the induction session with the rest of the company all online. I think in the history of Royal Enfield, I've never seen a CFO being onboarded online. And, he came and over a live session, he of the company. So you also have to innovate, but then, challenge वही है, trust बनाना. But trust कैसे बनेगा, credibility कैसे बनेगी, when you're solving for business problems, when you're not correcting grammar or you're making a poster, right?
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Junaid.
Yeah, there is one more question in the chat box by Wani Bilal, and he is asking for like, how we can be professional in writing the newsletters, articles, and memoirs, and can we use Instagram as a tool for it?
Okay, it's a very good question. And, like I said, one size does not fit all, Bilal. आप न्यूज़लेटर किस लिए बना रहे हो? Is it a business newsletter? Is it an HR newsletter? So you have to, पहले तो आप अपना एम सेट करो कि न्यूज़लेटर किस चीज के लिए है. एंड इंस्टाग्राम शायद वर्क नहीं करेगा, क्योंकि इंस्टाग्राम पे वो सब कुछ सारी दुनिया देखेगी, राइट? अगर आपको कुछ स्पेसिफिक डिलीवर करना है फॉर योर एम्प्लॉइज, तब आप इंस्टाग्राम नहीं यूज कर सकते, तब आपको अपने इंटरनल चैनल्स जो हैं वो यूज करने पड़ेंगे. बट न्यूज़लेटर बहुत तरीके का हो सकता है. न्यूज़लेटर सीईओ का न्यूज़लेटर हो सकता है, जिसमें वो बिजनेस के बारे में बात करते हैं और उसमें लोगों के बारे में भी बात होती है. एंड प्रोफेशनल, you can only become a good writer and a professional writer when you keep writing. I think the first step to becoming a writer is to start writing. Get rid of that writer's blog, and read a lot. Like, nobody was born a writer. It is an acquired skill. We can all acquire it. We can, it's only it's only limited by our thought कि हम writing में कितना आगे जा सकते हैं, right? You have to see पहले, और writing में जैसे हम PR में पढ़ते हैं the inverted pyramid, and also the quintessential 5 W's and 1 H and all that. You have to see कि कैसे आप लिख रहे हैं. इतना सारा information है, आपको information overload भी नहीं करना है, but आपको अपना message भी पहुंचाना है. तो आपको कैसे लिखेंगे? एक तो जो पढ़ता नहीं है वो लिखता नहीं है, मेरे को ऐसा लगता है कि अगर आप पढ़ेंगे नहीं तो आप लिखेंगे नहीं. इसलिए रीडिंग इज अ वर्च्यू दैट यू नीड टू डेवलप. रीडिंग इज अ स्किल दैट यू नीड टू डेवलप. व्हाटएवर इट इज, स्पेंड half an hour to read. Start your day with reading. If it's a newspaper, if it's like, an online article, whatever, set up a notification, get alerts for, like, I still have a Google alert for internal communication, so I know everything कि Facebook के कॉम्स हेड ने रिजाइन किया है और वो कहाँ मूव कर रहा है और नई टेक्नोलॉजी क्या आई है. You have to be updated on trends that are happening in the market. So Google is a very good tool. Whatever you want to Google alerts पे वो लगा दो writing skills की, and then keep reading and writing from there. But there is no set, and you have to see short form content, long form content. Instagram के लिए आपको headline ही लिखनी होगी, बड़ी कहानियां तो नहीं लिखनी होगी. तो वो आप कैसे करोगे? How do you tailor make your content for different social platforms? आप Facebook पे जाके, मैं LinkedIn पे देखती हूँ कि लोग 3-3 पेज के articles लिख देते हैं in their post section, which is not right. Nobody has got the time to consume so much content. अगर आपको प्रॉपर पोस्ट लिखना है तो LinkedIn has a post section like a newsletter section जहां जाके आप अपना आर्टिकल लिख सकते हो, राइट? सो यू ऑलवेज हैव टू सी कि आप किसके लिए कंटेंट क्रिएट कर रहे हो और किस तरह का कंटेंट क्रिएट कर रहे हो, राइट?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
थैंक यू.
Girish ji, you want to ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I want to ask a question related to a digital PR strategy, ma'am.
जी.
अगर हम बात करें, जैसे अगर कोई पब्लिक रिलेशन स्ट्रेटजी में डेवलप करनी है, फॉर एग्जांपल अभी इलेक्शन का कैंपेन है और या इलेक्शन के लिए कोई PR अगर ऑर्गेनाइज किया जा रहा है, तो डिफरेंट पार्टीज आर ऑलवेज यूजिंग देयर PR स्ट्रेटजीज. किस तरह की स्ट्रेटजीज होनी चाहिए? डिफरेंट पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज जो हैं अपना पॉलिटिकल कैंपेन चलाती हैं, और एक बात आ रही है ड्यू टू द कोविड कि यहाँ पे जो भी वर्चुअल रैलीज हो रही हैं
जी,
तो कहीं किस तरह का आप मतलब इसमें आपके क्या विचार है कि आपको क्या लगता है कि किस तरह की स्ट्रेटजी होनी चाहिए इस कैंपेन में एज ए डिजिटल PR स्ट्रेटजी की अगर हम बात करें तो? जो ज्यादा इम्पैक्ट कर सके, जो पीपल को ज्यादा।
आई थिंक देखिए एक तो बहुत बड़ी चीज जो होती है ना, जब मैं कहती हूँ कोई भी स्ट्रैटेजी एक बहुत बड़ा लफ्ज है और सुनने में भी अच्छा लगता है, तो लोगों को लगता है कि स्ट्रैटेजी इज लाइक अ ह्यूज वर्ड, राइट? बट आई थिंक इट ऑल बिगिंस विद योर एजेंडा, कि आपको एजेंडा क्या चलाना है. इट बिगिंस विद योर सेगमेंटेशन, इट बिगिंस विद द राइट काइंड ऑफ कंटेंट. इफ योर हार्ट इज इन द राइट प्लेस, आई थिंक योर स्ट्रैटेजी विल फॉल इन प्लेस. फॉर एग्जांपल, अगर हम रॉयल एनफील्ड में पब्लिक रिलेशन कैंपेन्स की बात करते हैं, तो हम वन ब्रीफ, एक हमारे पास डॉक्यूमेंट आता है जिससे हम, और उसी डॉक्यूमेंट के आसपास सारी स्ट्रैटेजीज, चाहे मार्केटिंग हो, चाहे इंटरनल कॉम्स हो, चाहे लीडरशिप हो, चाहे पब्लिक रिलेशंस हो, उसी डॉक्यूमेंट के आसपास घूमती है. लाइक व्हाट इज योर कोर प्रोडक्ट, एंड व्हाट इज योर कोर प्रोडक्ट. आई एम अज्यूमिंग कि इलेक्शंस में कोर प्रोडक्ट इज द पार्टी एंड द पर्सन, राइट? सो आपको एक वन ब्रीफ डॉक्यूमेंट, एक ब्रीफ डॉक्यूमेंट तो क्रिएट करना ही पड़ता है फॉर एनी स्ट्रैटेजी. बिकॉज अगर आप कहेंगे ना, जो आप लास्ट स्टेप है आपका टैक्टिक्स या मीडियम, कि आप ट्विटर पे क्या कैंपेन चलाएंगे, या फिर आप टीवी पे क्या चलाएंगे, या फिर आप सोशल जो न्यूज प्लेटफॉर्म्स है उस पे क्या चलाएंगे. आई थिंक एक ओल्ड अडाज है जो हम सुनते आए थे कि कंटेंट इज किंग. कंटेंट स्टिल रिमेन्स टू बी द किंग एंड क्वीन ऑफ whatever you do. So tactics could be different, your mediums could be different, you can have different forms of content, but I think the beginning part to a good strategy is good content. And in starting with what you have to sell, फिर वो basic core तो एक किसी का ही, सबका सेम ही रहता है ना. We see the political parties running campaigns and these are all murkier campaigns, right? Like sir said that anyway the standard of journalism in our country is very different now versus what it used to be. So वो मुझे लगता है कि एक core strategy जो influence करती है वो है great content and a great brief of what you want to do, and then it is only a matter of selecting your channels, कि आप क्या कौन सा channel select कर रहे हो to propagate your message.
Okay ma'am, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we are just, summing up this session here. On behalf of newswriters.in, I would like to thank our speaker. I would like to thank all participants for their active participation. I'm thankful to Professor Subhash Dhulia sir, who is director of this course, Content, Multimedia and Content Development. And I'm also thankful to our core leaders of this team, Sanjay Kumar sir, who is former editor, Microsoft MSN, and Vivek Pandey sir, who is senior editor, Z5. I'm thankful to Saket Bharadwaj. I'm also thankful to Dr. Saket Raman, and last but not the least, all lovely participants for joining us. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.